In this session, let us see who can learn Vedas or who can be taught Vedas and these kind of issues from what has been said in the Shastras or code of conducts to what are the practices that are happening today. If you look at Apastamba Sutra or any other kind of olden documents, the age that has been fixed for Upanayanam or wearing of the ceremonial thread and inducting a boy into the religious or the spiritual phase of life, it should start at the age of 8 for Brahmins, within 8 years, 12 years for the Kshatriyas, and latest 16 years for a Vaishya. Now, it seems there has been no restrictions about the learning of Vedas, but if somebody should learn Vedas, they should start at a very early age. Let us look at something about what has been said in good old days. First, they say you bring up a child like a king, like a prince or a princess till the age of 5. Then treat him like a servant from the age of 5 to 12. And once by 12 he grows to your shoulder height, always treat him like a friend. This is something quite interesting because it is from the 5th year the child starts exploring more things. It can become mischievous or naughty. It depends on how the child's formative years between 5 to 12 are well controlled. If you look at astrology, the ancient document says the first 4 years of the child runs on its Purva Punya. Next 4 years is supposed to affect its mother, and next 4 years its father. So the horoscope starts taking a good effect on the child on its own by the age of 12. Therefore, lot of things have been said about educating or initiating the child into the religious or spiritual process by the right time. So what we see from the ancient text is that there are no restrictions, but you must adhere to the principle. But if you decide to learn Vedas and pursue the ultimate, you should stick to that line. But anybody learns Vedas, it is not necessarily he will have the full divine grace to become a rishi or attain the Brahman. Normally, the word Brahmana is not very correctly interpreted in the current times. A Brahmana is a person in those days who would leave everything out, and his ultimate goal in life is to realize himself. That is the path that he has taken. Once he realizes that, he becomes a rishi, muni, and gets those kind of title depending upon what is his level of realization. But does it mean that people of the other varnas cannot become a Brahman? No. Learning Vedas and attaining a self-realization are two independent things. But if you look at Valmiki Rishi, it was supposed that he was a thief. It was due to Narada, the celestial Bhakt of Lord Vishnu. He wanted him to say Mara, Mara, Mara. As Valmiki uttered the word Rama, Rama, Mara, it became Rama, Rama, Rama. Suddenly something occurred to him that he renounced his life of being a thief. He took to learning Vedas, Shastras, Kavya, everything. He became a highly learned rishi, and he himself wrote the story of Ramayana, and Valmiki Ramayana is the oldest and the most respected story on Lord Ram. Vishwamitra was a king, a Kshatriya. He looked at the powers of a saint because he wanted to take control of Kamadhenu. His army got defeated. Then he knew there is some immense power with these rishis. I will one day become a rishi. He renounced this kingdom to do penance. Not only he did that, he also gave us the Gayatri Mantra and attained a Brahma Rishi status. Then Vyasa Rishi, who was supposed to have lived around the Mahabharata times, who is named as Krishna Dvapayana, is a child of a Rishi or a Muni born to a fisherwoman. But he has attained a great level of expertise, or it is all God gifted. So that's why he is called the incarnation or avatar of Vishnu, that he has compiled us the entire Vedas and given it to us for our studies. So what is happening in the current age? many parents, after the Upanayanam of their children at the age of 8 and 10, send their children for Veda learning. Normally, the Veda learning gets cut off once he reaches 10. The 10th is supposed to be as if, it's a monster examination that has to be defeated. Now, he gets into engineering and IT companies. That's the end of Veda learning. But there are many people I have seen, youngsters below the age of 30, continuing that Veda learning even after a very busy professional schedule. Now, another area that comes is people go to 50, they have now secured jobs, or they have reached 55, they have taken voluntary retirement and they want to learn Veda. Yes, gurus are willing to teach them. But many of the gurus are very strict about their voice. They do a voice test. If you fail the voice test, they are not willing to teach. I have seen one guru who gives the language of the choice of the prospective student and ask him to read that language. If he is able to read it fluently, then only he will clear him for admission into his class. Gurus, as of today, teach vegetarian Saivites, Vaishnavites, or all Kshatriyas. But all gurus insist that their students be pure vegetarians. Now, in the current scheme of things or learning, is there a Kshatriya or a Vaishya? Have they become Vedic Pandits? Yes, it is very much possible even today if they have moved into the Vedas at a very early age or their parents have moved in. For example, recently Pandit Sri Priyavrata Patil, he was one of the youngest at the age of 16 to write and clear an exam which is of great importance, that our Prime Minister called and congratulated Priyavrata Patil. Now, if you look at the surname, I have lived in Maharashtra for a long time. The Patil as a surname, normally the surname comes from accountants of a village who used to take care of the revenue accounting of the produce, income and expenditure, etc. Classes of Patils who were warriors. Priyavrata Patil's father is a Vedic scholar and an expert. That means, how did he become a scholar? He wanted to learn Vedas and follow those proper righteous way of life. So he took to the Vedas and he himself became a Vedic Pandit at an early age. And he wanted it to continue, so he initiated Priyavrata into Vedas. So people start thinking at a much later age, can I not learn Veda now? Can I not become a Prohit? It is all like saying you have done commerce, passed chartered accountancy or cost accountancy. At the age of 45, you suddenly say, I want to work as a scientist in ISRO or NASA. This is not possible. That is one of the reasons in the olden times, it is very clearly said, between the four varnas, you choose any one of the varna, the class, and follow it to the right end. Right? Now, there are some new initiatives that are happening in India. There are some Sarva Varna institutes or organizations that teach Veda. The rule is that boys from any caste or community will be admitted into the institute or that organization. The boys will stay there for 6, 7 or 8 years, depend on what they are learning. They will not be allowed to go home. They will follow all the practices that are normally prescribed for a Vedic student, and they can pursue further education. But they are there in very limited locations. But if you see in Tamil Nadu, there are Sivacharyas who teach Saivite, the Tamil Veda and the Agama rules. So the world has undergone a lot of change. You cannot question currently what are the practices. In the good old times, the Vedic study was one of the schools that was readily available as an option, like a school for a warrior that would have been there, or a training for a Kshatriya. A question would arise that why the Brahmins of today, who are descendants of some rishis or brahmanas, they have the gotra, to maintain and sustain these Vedas. See, the main thing is, Vedas are treasures of immense value. Like modern times, one has thought about money. Perhaps Agora Rishi would have patented Rudra, and he asked for 1 paise per chanting of Rudra in the last 5-10,000 years, uncountable, he would have earned crores and crores, and perhaps Agora Rishi would be owning half this planet Earth. Like that, did Vyasa, when he compiled and given the Vedas to us, was there money in their mind? No. First, please understand, the whole Vedas are not about the physical and material world, but for our living. In Chamakam, or you take any prarthana or invocation, we ask for worldly benefits. That's for us to survive. Vedas, since they have been a great revelation, they should not be forgotten and passed on to the next generation. Therefore, somebody should take a prime responsibility. Vedic studies, since have been taken by the Brahmins, there is a responsibility put on them, and they call it a Rishi Rina, that is a debt to the Rishis. And this must be repaid because they are the descendants of a group of Rishis. That is one of the reasons Kanchi Acharya also keeps, many times he repeats to his followers and devotees that they must do their best to protect and sustain and nurture Veda as well as Vedic institutions. So, in his own interest, he has created many Padashalas. One of the Padashalas in Chennai has students who are also parallelly doing schooling and education as per CBSE syllabus, as I came to know from a Padashala manager. If you go by community today, or these communities which are not taken as Brahmins, for example, do they come sometimes outside the purview of the Rishi? Are they not descendants of a Rishi? Actually, if you look at, there is a Garga Rishi. You have Garga Gotra in many parts of India. I have seen Kshatriyas as well as business communities having a surname Garg. Similarly, you have certain communities having surname as Kaushik, Vatul representing, meaning Vatul Rishi. What has happened actually is, with the change in times and the economy, foreign rule, many people have to shift their place. They have to adopt to a new job or means of earning. Therefore, people have moved from one Varna to the other Varna, but it is nice to see that they have not forgotten their Rishi. It is still with their name. We received a question from an elderly gentleman. He says, "Sir, I am from a community who have not learned Vedas. It seems our community had been learning Vedas some 200 years back and we moved our profession. What we could do to, help the Vedas?" See, the answer is simple. If you have at least some money to spare, if you feel you have not been helping the cause of Vedas till now, you can contribute and make donations to Padashalas, which are housing, which take normally very poor students or many times orphans whose relatives come and dump the boy in a Padashala. But I must say that the gurus who are running Padashala in India are facing innumerable difficulties in maintaining the Padashala and giving training and imparting Vedic education to the poor students. So, one can look at contribution to the Padashalas as a way of helping the cause of Veda Rakshan.